And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. This is Coffee Talk or at Coffee Talk Live. If you're looking for me on YouTube, as well as Prepper University on YouTube, simultaneously broadcasting on both YouTube channels at once, and at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter or X, formerly known as Twitter. Let's get it right. And Fistful of Radio. That is fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, if you wouldn't mind going and checking that out. As we get ready to jump into what's going on in the world today and talking about the news and other snippets, some things you may know about, some things you may not know about, because I do try to dig up some obscure things that are kind of important. Dusty here today, sitting on the table, grooming herself, keeping me company. How you doing, Dusty? Everybody's favorite. I don't know if it's everybody's favorite, but a lot of people like Dusty. Very, very gentle animal, Dusty is. And I'll go ahead and, of course, acknowledge some of the people who have chosen to pop in here on the live portion on YouTube. And I do try to read as many of the comments as I can within reason for those of you who are listening and not able to see, so you can keep up with the conversation. Now, go ahead and name a few people off here really quickly. I see Helter has joined us. Flukeman is here. Urban Angst. Preparedness Veteran. Preparedness, were you here last week? Dragon is here. Chris Servin is here. Boogers is here. And Dragon has a question. He says, do you think mentioning jury nullification is a surefire way to get out of jury duty? I don't know. Are you up for jury duty? You can act really confused, like you don't, like you have dementia or something, and ask them to repeat questions over and over again and annoy them. I'm sorry, what was that? And then give them an answer that doesn't make any damn sense. Personally, I've never been able to actually get out of jury duty. Where you going, Dusty? Hi. As she tries to get my attention, I see Spectre is here. Says the world is going to hell. 2 days ago, I got ripped off all my power tools out of my truck. They stole my livelihood. No tools, no work, no money. That's terrible. That's terrible, Spectre. I'm sorry to hear that. All People is here. Preparedness says he was away in the evenings and traveling. I see. Bulldozer is here, but he can't stay too long. But I'm glad you were able to drop in. Yeah, that stinks, Spectre. I know what it's like to have to get like totally ripped off. Only in my case, my ex did it. But yeah, Flukeman says, can the next president start new legal procedures on criminals? He's been let off of charges under Biden administration. I suppose he could always go the route of an executive order, but that, whether or not that gets carried out is another matter altogether. Booger says, just identify as Biden during jury duty, you might get out of it. Yeah, I know. And Monkey says, I know if you try to justify a jury nullification, you'll just end up in trouble, if I remember correctly. I don't trust juries anyways. I don't trust juries. I don't trust the judge. I just better stay out of court. But again, sorry about that, Spectre. That really bugs me that that happened to you. Seriously. But as we get ready to start jumping in to the news, and we will start off with Chicago. And this is an article from Fox News. It says Chicago migrants return to Venezuela ahead of winter. There's nothing for us here. As many of you are aware, the Biden administration has authorized so far, I believe this year, because they did 2 authorizations, 750,000, like damn near 750,000 work visa authorizations for Venezuelan migrants. They're leaving. They don't want it. They're already leaving. Chicago migrants are returning to Venezuela. The ones that actually came here to work are leaving. That tells you everything you need to know right there. Chicago migrants are beginning to move back to Venezuela as the city runs out of resources to house and support illegal immigrants. The Chicago Tribune reported on the account of Michael Castiglione, who migrated with his, or Castigon, it might be because J is sometimes a G sound or a H sound, like Castiglione, it might be, who migrated with his wife and stepdaughter from Venezuela to find a better life. However, after several months, the family suffered from homelessness, lack of job opportunities, and no access to better education. By early November, they had requested tickets back to their home country. I'll tell you what happened. It started getting cold. They're from South America. That's going to bother them. The American dream doesn't exist anymore, Castiglione said. There's nothing here for us. There's nothing here for us either, buddy. It's because of all the people crossing the border. Not necessarily just because of them, but because of how that's gotten out of control has contributed a great deal to the suffering of the actual citizens here because our tax money's funding this. The report suggested that Castiglione was not the only migrant who felt that way, I would think. As the city grows colder, many are requesting tickets to other cities or even other countries to avoid sleeping on the streets during the winter. Guess they didn't think that was going to happen. How many more months of living in the streets will I take? No more. It's better that I leave. At least I have my mother back home, Castiglione said. Some migrants suggested they had been misled to believe they could be granted asylum immediately and perhaps receive a work permit. Others acknowledged the sheer number of illegal immigrants overwhelming the city has likely depleted resources. Even the people coming here for the freebies have figured it out, but the Biden administration hasn't. Or rather, I think they have, but this is being done on purpose to kind of unravel us. We didn't know things would be this hard, Castiglione said. I thought the process was faster. Yeah, that's what they told you. City officials reported that Chicago has received more than 19,000 migrants since August of 2022. In addition, over 68,000 Chicago citizens are experiencing homelessness. As the migrant crisis grew worse, local leaders have begun debating Chicago's status as a sanctuary city for migrants. There shouldn't be such a thing. We're spending a lot of money every single day, Ninth Ward Alderman Anthony Beale said during a Chicago City Council meeting in November. I think up to $40 million a month, ladies and gentlemen. Is that just in his borough? Because I'm willing to bet it's more than that. In the meantime, the city's been forced to house migrants at O'Hare Airport, police stations, and even youth sports fields. Many others have been forced onto the streets despite freezing temperatures. Well, go back. He says, we just want to be home. Castiglione said, if we're going to be sleeping in the streets here, we'd rather be sleeping in the streets over there. Well, at least over there, you know who everybody is and you know where you are. Here, you don't know nothing. Unbelievable. Let's see here. Bulldozer says 5 months ago, I had a homeless folk break into my Jeep and they stole all my camping gear, $3,000 worth of stuff, tent, camping cot, camping pad, rocket stove, everything. And yeah, that's a shame too. That's unbelievable that people at that base, people were never that great to begin with. This doesn't help. Merv says Hickory smoking some ribeyes for the family getting ready for Thanksgiving. Oh, really? And the warden is here. Glad you could make it, as well as Gary Smith. He says, "G'day. Are you in Australia or New Zealand?" I don't always remember where everybody is. Nature Nerd says communist Venezuelans don't like working. Preparedness says wonder if they'll spread the word. And wait till springtime, see if anything has changed. Yeah, wait till spring. Nature Nerd says too many people cross the border and people can't get jobs since the economy can't grow fast enough to keep up with the migrants flooding the city. Our economy is struggling. Our economy is becoming unraveled as there's less and less jobs available because of all the strikes, people getting replaced with robots, people getting replaced with AI bots and other crap like that. And you think that you're going to bring in a labor force from other countries? All you're going to do with that labor force is displace actual citizens. And then where's your tax money going to come from? Because those migrants are going to earn less. They're going to make less money. It's a very frustrating experience, to say the least. And it's getting worse for these sanctuary cities. I think this is another article also from Fox News, And Gary says Canada actually just didn't feel like saying going howdy today. Oh, okay. Is that why you said a hoser? Unbelievable. But I think this is another article from Fox News also talking about migrants, but we're going to pop over to New York for this one. And it says, first batch of migrants arrives in Brooklyn, disgusted, and they're ready to leave. No sleep till Brooklyn. And then let me see here. Helter says, I believe it's by design. Crime is definitely going to rise if something isn't done. Tens of millions are struggling and desperate. Yeah. And then they can crack down hard on it and restrict and regulate everybody even further than they already are. So sure, it's by design. I believe it. Can't prove it, but I believe it. Getting into this article, the first batch of migrants was bust to a makeshift tent city in Brooklyn on Sunday and took one look and were ready to leave, according to reports. Shortly after 12:30 p.m. Sunday, dozens of migrant families arrived at the remote housing site and wanted no part of it upon arrival. Yeah, because it looks like it looks like a concentration camp, I bet. They're probably scared to death. Oh, is this the final destination for us now? You're going to round us up in a camp and we'll disappear forever? You can imagine what they must be thinking. The controversial tent shelter at Brooklyn's Floyd Bennett Field, which has drawn widespread criticism for its remote location, among many other concerns, is set to house nearly 2,000 migrants. But the first busload abandoned the site after taking view of it. Excellent. As we have said time and time again, more than 139,500 asylum seekers have moved through our intake system since the spring of 2022, all of whom who have been offered vital services, New York Mayor Eric Adams said in a statement. Do you have those same vital services for the citizens of New York City? Asking for a friend. New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who got approved from the Biden administration to use Floyd Bennett Field for migrants, has also called on the feds to do more. Translation, we want more tax money. But Mayor Adams has assured that precautions are in place to ensure safety at the site. Oh, sorry, the ads are making it skip around. I don't want to lose my place here. But with more than 65,600 migrants still currently in our care and thousands more continuing to arrive every week, we have used every possible corner of New York City and are quite simply out of good options for to shelter migrants, Adams said. Yeah, what does that tell you, Adams? And your solution is you want more cash? City officials are also working out the details to ensure that migrant children housed at the site have bus transportation to get to school because more tax dollars. State Assemblywoman Jamie Williams, Democrat of Brooklyn, was at the field Sunday and spoke with a man who told her he was with the city's health and hospital system and had talked with some of the migrants. What did he say? He said, it's a disaster waiting to happen, Williams said in a statement. All that to say that, quote, it's a disaster waiting to happen. What a waste. Over 10,100 asylum seekers have come through the city's intake center since September 2022. The city has opened 206 sites, including 15 humanitarian relief centers. Yeah, so they saw the tent city. You'd think they would have shown a picture of the tent city in the article since they mentioned it, but no, you don't get to see that. That's bad editing, Fox News. Just saying. Anyways, as we continue on here, Bulldozer says, good, get the F out of here, illegals. Urban says, oh, well, at least authorities aren't pretending that it's refugees like during the Syrian refugee racket in the UK. God. Flukeman says, Oakland's DA, Pamela Price, let gangland shooters go free who accidentally killed a toddler in Crossfire. Even said she won't allow a judge to do his job, but called the police for being carjacked. I bet she did. She deserved to get carjacked. Maybe she'll learn something. Nature Note says migrants don't realize America has a very high cost of living. Apartments are too expensive for Americans to the point where you need a roommate to even afford it. Gary says, of course, they want more cash. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And Oh, he's talking to Fluke. Dragon says those illegals entered the country through hell and high water, but they still can't learn how to communicate via New York City Transit like the rest. Oh, commute via New York City Transit like the rest of us do. Beggars can't be choosers. Well, again, and we covered this a couple of weeks back. They're stealing all the scooters out there. Entire stores, scooter stores, are being pilfered of their entire inventory. People are getting yanked off of scooters in the middle of the street, and they're all lined up in front of these migrant hotels, no license plates. And I showcased that last week. So they can get around on a scooter. They just can't figure out the subway. Nature Nerd says when cities raise property taxes, the landlords that own your apartments need to pay it, which raises rent even further. And then they want to complain about rent control. And that's just the old okie doke from the government. We made fees and taxes and regulations almost unrealistic for landlords, and landlords have no other choice. They raise the fees, or else they can't maintain the buildings, or else they end up losing the buildings. The taxes become too high, and the city forecloses on the property or something. And that's a bad scenario, and that's about how it works. Your average landlord is not Scrooge McDuck rolling around in a swimming pool full of gold coins. Many of them are like a hair away from bankruptcy. All people says fact, no one owes anyone a better life. It's no one's job to fulfill anyone's dream. American dream is freedom to the true Americans, but freebies to the economic migrants. And then Bulldozer says, and they refuse to learn our language, English. Hello, yeah, I know, but that isn't tolerated in other countries. If you don't learn the language, you're just kind of screwed. You're really just kind of screwed. But they don't want to be in New York now, and they don't want to be in Chicago now. Maybe they can go to Los Angeles. Hey, there's an idea. Let's go to Los Angeles, everybody. And this is GB News. Los Angeles Democrat mayor says the entire hotels will be leased to the homeless. Preparedness says there's so many of them now, they don't need to learn English. Yeah, no kidding. And there she is. She looks so pleased with herself, doesn't she? Doesn't she look pleased? Doesn't she look really smug? Wouldn't you just love for Curly to throw a pie in her face? Somebody gets that reference. The mayor of Los Angeles has said she plans to lease entire hotels to solve the homeless crisis, the homelessness crisis, rather. Democrat Karen Bass said that communities had been set up within the encampment. She said, what we're doing is that we are leasing motel rooms. It's an expensive model, so we're getting ready to master lease, which means we lease the entire hotel or motel. Yeah, that'll be cheaper than just renting rooms. The mayor of Los Angeles has said she plans to lease entire hotels to solve the homeless crisis. All right, it skipped and I missed my place. Damn pop-up ads. And it says, and we go to the encampments, which are a series of tents. What I think the general public might not realize is that to survive on the street, people create communities. So instead of splitting them up, we move the entire community inside. A community-based organization takes over and provides the services. Oh, I see. So you think that you're going to break up the structure of the community that forms in these little tent shelter sections and put them in a building, and that because you manage the building, which is going to cost extra on top of the leasing of the building itself, that you're going to break up their sub-community structure, which, by the way, if you're talking about standard homeless people, is going to be drugs, alcohol, and prostitution and black market theft, because you're going to have a manager in the hotel. Yeah, that'll work. Bass was first elected to the role of mayor of Los Angeles 11 months ago. Wow, she's on a roll. Speaking on MSNBC, she said, I do believe there is a new sense of urgency in the city. A new sense of urgency. It hasn't been urgent for 20 years now? We launched Inside Safe right after I took over, and that was a campaign continuing to get people out of tents and into housing. Inside Safe, is that the name of the program? I think everyone assumed it would be resistance because there was this myth that people wanted to stay on the seats. It says they misspelled it. It should be streets. It says seats. I can tell you, people did not have a problem at all. One of the people who took place in the scheme spoke about how much safer they felt now that they were off the street. They said, I walked in and it was the first time I felt safety and peace and a sense of this in the beginning, and a sense that this is the beginning of the rest of my life. And then they gave that person an envelope and they went and they bought crack with the money that was in it. I don't believe that they talked to anybody for real at all. Oh my God. Yeah, if you want to put them in a motel room, they'll go in there, they'll destroy it. That's just more tax money going down the drain. I don't know what to tell you, California. Anybody still in California? They should just abandon it now while they still can. Fluke Man says leased to the homeless. I'm sure she's talking about homeless Americans. Yeah. Nature Nerd says, who's making the money if they are leasing the hotels? Whoever owns the hotels. And I'm sure there's a behind-the-scenes handshake between lawmakers and hotel owners. Helter says, when you see those wonderful old 1950s films of LA showing how clean the city was back then, you'll realize how low the city has sunk. You want to see a real prime example? Watch the film with James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause. And he's at the observatory, and he looks out over the observatory to a forest. There isn't a building for miles. And then look at that observatory in a modern photograph. You can't find a tree anywhere. Let me see here. Deanna says that's some salty narrative today. Yeah, well. I'm just sick of hearing these people. They act like everything is so damn great because they threw more money at the problem. And really, in the long run, all it does is make the problem worse. You're going to we'll take them out of the tents. Yeah, if you give them a hotel room, they'll go there, but they'll destroy it because that's all that ever happens. Oh, well, we're going to break up that culture. And she doesn't have the courage to say that what she really means is a culture of drugs and alcohol and illegal sex trafficking and prostitution and weird stuff and whatever else they're into, breaking into cars, breaking into stores, robbing people on the street, and whatever else they're doing, only out of a hotel instead of a tent or a trailer that's parked on the side of the road. And you're not going to contain that because you moved them into a hotel. Dragon says, I bet the mayor must have been drinking Bud Light beer. That's how she probably got the bright idea for leasing hotels. And Cruising says, city here did put the homeless in cheap hotel rooms. It actually worked pretty well with dealing with temporary homelessness after the C virus stopped being effective. But it stopped being effective eventually. And Bulldozer says, why is the government so messed up? Are they not paying attention? This is not the America I fought for. I totally feel you there. I get it. No, this is not the America you fought for. And they're out of touch. These career politicians are hopelessly out of touch with what it means to actually be down here and have to deal with all of this. Urban says, meanwhile, in San Francisco, I keep seeing headlines that pretty much every single store in the downtown area is closed. And yeah, possibly forever. And Fluke Man says, obviously, she purposely said homeless, not illegals, knowing how New Yorkers feel about it. Is that what it is? Is that what happened? As we move around here, we're going to jump back to Illinois for this article. And this is actually pretty important. This comes from the Wall Street Journal. School choice dies in Illinois because they took it away as an option, and that's really not fair. Basically, they're stealing the tax money back. For those of you who don't understand, I'm sure most of you get what I'm talking about. School choice is a concept by which you sit there and you say, hey, you took all this tax money from me. I don't want my kid in public school. Give me my tax money back, and I'll spend it at a private school of my choice. Illinois has just taken that option away. So picking up on the article. Sometimes the worst political scandals occur in plain sight, even if most of the press corps choose not to notice. And this is not something that's really being talked about either. And it sets a precedence because other states that are doing this may decide to reallocate that tax money also if Illinois gets away with this. That's what happened last week in Illinois, where the Democratic Union machine killed scholarships for 9,600 low-income children. The state and national teachers union made a priority, and pointing out here, this is important to understand, the state and the national teachers union made a priority of blocking an extension of the Invest in Kids program that provided a 75% state tax credit for donations to help families afford private school. The unions claim the credit drained money from public schools, but public funding has actually increased nearly $2 billion since Invest in Kids began under former Governor Bruce Rhoner. Only 35% of Illinois children read at grade level, according to WirePoints. So no wonder there are more than 20,000 children on the Invest in Kids waiting list. Current Governor J.B. Pritzker refused to help save the program, even for children currently benefiting from it. Those families will now have to find some other way to pay for the tuition. Empower Illinois, the state's largest scholarship granting organization, says it will seek private donors to cover the tuition, but the most common donation was roughly $1,000, and many of those smaller donors may disappear without the tax credit. Governor Pritzker is a billionaire. No kidding, you think? And his Pritzker Family Foundation could help. According to Crane's Chicago Business Journal, the foundation has donated $8.3 million to Milton Academy, the Massachusetts boarding school Mr. Pritzker attended. It has donated $2.5 million to Duke University, according to Carolina Journal, and $100 million to Northwestern Law School, which has renamed itself in his honor. Invest in Kids is a bargain by comparison, requiring about $71 million for the coming year. Illinois is now the first state to kill a major school choice program. The scandal reflects the bloody mindedness of the unions that want to snuff out every minor competition to retain their monopoly, and it reveals how little most Democrats care about the children they imprison in these failure factories. I like that wording. And that, of course, that's a reference to public school. Children they imprison in failure factories. Wow, that hits you right in the chops when you think about it. Catching up some of the comments here. Monkey says, and you wonder why recruitment is at a low. The fact of skinny fat, obesity, and seeing how the country is going. Yeah. And plus, they were cowards anyways. They'll join the army and then they'll want to be a conscientious objector. We had a lot of that even during Desert Storm. I'm not going to fight. That's not what I joined the reserves for. What the hell did you think was going to happen? Seriously. Where's the fool killer when you need him? Who knows who the fool killer is? All People says Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, is from an Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latino migrant family and pretends to be an American slave descendant. And Nature Nerd says Seattle has big tent cities on the edge of the highway, and most of the signs are graffitied on, which you would think would be illegal and a safety issue. They don't find the vandalizers. And Bulldozer says just because you're poor doesn't make you un-American. Unbelievable. That's true. And Urban says, when was the last time a union leader was charged for some corruption or another? Probably last week. You see it all the time. You just don't hear about it unless it happens to be like a massive amount of like millions and millions of dollars, and it ends up on something like American Greed, the docudrama show. Otherwise, most of it flies under the radar and you don't hear about it. But I'm sure there's corruption all the time, and I'm sure a lot of people end up in trouble. That's an important program. And it's a program I can agree with. You, especially in Illinois, where the school tax is so freaking high. I think, again, when we were living there, I'm trying to remember, it was like $5,000 or $6,000 a year attached to our property taxes for school tax. And we were on the low end. I was talking to people that their property taxes, yearly property taxes on their home in Illinois was like 11, 12, $13,000 a year, with most of it being for the public school system. And you're running, again, a failure factory, like it said there. You can't justify the amount of money. And then they want more money. That's always the answer. And now they're destroying an option. I really don't want my kid in private school. You took this tax money for education. Let me spend it the way I want. And I'll put my kid in a private school of my choice. And they don't even give you enough to cover the tuition, up to 75% kickback from the state for 9,600 children, it says. And they have 20,000 kids on the waiting list hoping for a slot. And you just pull the rug out from under all of these kids. And they're going to end up, probably because the families can't afford it, end up in public school and get a piece of shit education. Nature Nerd says Illinois has been bad education and is in the top 3 worst roads due to corruption, despite having the highest taxes in the country. Yeah, their roads are shit too, and they charge a fortune for it. Hell, they've got the tolls. You're paying tolls. You're paying road taxes. You've got the lottery money, which is supposed to go to public schools and roads and parks and recreations and crap, and the roads look like garbage. Monkey says, at least thank God Ohio provides assistance for those in low-performance schools to go to a private school and those that are in the low-income families. Bulldozer says, excellent words, failure factories, public schools are a disaster. I like that terminology. Fluke Man says, what do you think is the best action for an individual serviceman to do if they're being sent to illegal war or lied to? You don't have too many choices. That's every war, first of all. Every war that we've had, we've been bamboozled into. World War I, World War II, Vietnam. I mean, you name it, and we didn't have any business being there anyways. Pretty, for the most part. World War II, we were snookered into it because of Pearl Harbor, but we were already supporting the war. FDR was already sending hundreds of millions of dollars worth of supplies and equipment and everything else to Great Britain, fueling them. So we would have been drug in it eventually anyways. There's really no way to get out of it because we can't make that decision unless you're handicapped somehow. Nature Nerd says Illinois needs to realize that better education means better economy for them. That's true. And Monkey says all Republicans, state, House, and Senate, by the way. What is? In Illinois? And governor, too. I don't know who's in charge in Illinois. Preparedness says one wonders which black hole these tax dollars end up in. And Joe says, Prepper U, do you have any ideas on how to catch a cat? One of my neighbor's cats has tried to break into my chicken coop twice now. They should go for I don't know is it a feral cat or is it a domesticated cat? You said it's one of your neighbor's cats. I'm assuming it's a domesticated cat. If it's a feral cat, they're going to be smarter. A domesticated cat might go for a standard small animal trap like you would use for a raccoon or a possum or something like that. You put a plate of food in there that has a really strong, particularly a fish odor, and you should catch them. But I've dealt with feral cats that won't go near a trap, but a domesticated cat will. They'll fall into that. Bulldozer says Colorado's the same way with taxes, roads, homelessness, freaking Democrats. Robert says, have you used to apply for an exemption if you didn't have kids in the education system? Then they asked that. Yeah. And you didn't have a choice. It's like, I don't even have a kid in school and you're charging me a fortune. Most of what we pay in taxes here in Georgia, it's a lot better by a long shot than what we were paying in Illinois. But the majority of it, better than 80%, is school tax. Still, and Monkey says he meant Ohio. Okay, thanks for the clarification. And Paul says Great Britain had to pay the Americans for that stuff. We finished paying it in 2016. he was still sending it. He wanted to get in. Urban says many Christian communities have a system of homeschool hubs. Any parents who are able to give time or pool their savings to train themselves how to give lessons for small groups of 8 to 12 kids. And I always say that's the best first option. Best first option is to homeschool. And there are homeschooling communities, and often you can find them in churches. Hi, Granny. Granny is visiting me. Nature says most of Illinois is Republican except Chicago, and multiple Democrat governors in a row have been jailed. And Paul says he lives in the Canary Islands now. Come here, Granny. Come here. Come here, Granny. Come here, Granny. Good girl. Good girl. Come here. Don't be afraid. There we go. Granny Smith, everybody. Hi, darling. Give everybody a cat break real quick. It's Granny Smith. Her elbow is doing better. Her elbow's doing better. She still limps, though, because if you're not familiar, this is the one that had the broken elbow. You doing all right, honey? And oddly enough, my understanding is this cat has never been indoors. This has always been an outdoor cat. It was a feral cat that someone did a catch and release on. You can see her ears tipped. But then her elbow was broken, and they asked me if I would take her. And since bringing her in the house, she has not one time, it's been like a couple of months now at least, not once made an attempt to go to an exterior door. So a cat that has never been inside now doesn't want to go out. You want to go down, honey? All right. We'll set Granny down. There you go, dear. I'll catch up a couple more comments and move along here. Paul says, love your chats when I can. Well, I'm glad to get something out of it. I appreciate that. And Gary says, the apple of your eye. Is she? Yeah, Granny Smith. I call her Granny Smith. Don't ask. It just is. And you see Dusty over here sleeping in the chair. But yeah, she's a sweetheart. It's not at all what I expected or what I heard about when I was, when we first caught wind of her. It's like, yeah, she limps, something's wrong. She wouldn't even put her foot down. And Bulldozer says he's looking for a kitten, and they're therapeutic. They're great for keeping rodents away from your property, too. As we move along. And we're going to talk about everybody's favorite little sister. Oh, I got all people all gushy now. He says, Granny Smith nodded her head when you asked her if she was doing all right. How sweet is that? I don't think they understand what I'm saying, but I think they catch the vibe. You know what I mean? They kind of understand what you mean, but I don't think that she understands what I actually say. Everyone's favorite little sister, and this comes from the Telegraph, so you know it's true. Activist wrestles mic away from Greta Thunberg over pro-Palestine chants at climate rally. She just can't get it right anymore. And Paul says he has 6 chickens now. They're funny. They are funny. And they'll eat anything, and they'll keep rodents out of your yard too. They will eat rats and mice. They'll chase them down and tear them to bits. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. There she is, fighting with the guy. He's pulling the mic away from her, and your big goofy smile on her face like she thinks she's doing something. Because I swear to God, people like her, they do not think for themselves. Someone told her, one of her handlers told her that if she goes pro-Palestine, it'll work in her favor, and it's not working. But she doesn't know how to let it go. I love that she has a Shema on now, too. Like that's supposed to mean something. I won't believe you. I won't believe you, Greta, until you're in a full burqa. It says climate activists wrestled the microphone away from Greta Thunberg over pro-Palestinian chants at an Amsterdam rally, telling her he came for a demonstration, not political views. Good for you. Miss Thunberg's speech was briefly interrupted by the incident on Sunday, which saw the middle-aged man climb on stage and before grappling with her in front of thousands of onlookers. The crowd were chanting, Palestine will be free, as he clambered up on to confront the 20-year-old Swedish activist. I've come here for a climate demonstration, not a political view, he said, as he unsuccessfully tried to rip the microphone from her before being dragged away. Apparently unshaken by the incident, Ms. Thunberg told the protester to calm down. She began chanting "No climate justice on occupied land" after she got the microphone back. Lady, do you really think that they're worried about the climate in Gaza? Seriously? They don't give a damn about the climate, and they don't support you. Oh, here's video of the incident of the two of them wrestling over the microphone, and then She-Man comes over and pulls him off. Each female looking more masculine than the other. Earlier in the day, another activist had her speech cut short by the rally's organizers after she used the contested phrase "from the river to the sea." So they were already having problems with it. Local police said around 70,000 people joined Sunday's march through Amsterdam to demand immediate action against climate change. Organizers said the turnout was the largest ever at climate protests in the Netherlands. Absolutely embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. And again, even the people that propped her up are sick of her at this point. They're sick of Greta. And I think this was done so that she would destroy herself. She'll eat herself out. Because it's a completely different mindset. That's why this guy jumped up on stage. That's why the other speaker was taken away before this for the river to the sea garbage. That's not what they're there for. Not what they are there for. As I'll catch up a few more of these comments here really quick. Yeah, Spectre, she's named after an apple, Granny Smith. All People says Dusty, Granny, and Uncle, the Three Musketeers. And Daniel. And poor Hobo. Hobo, who showed up at the back door. You know, Hobo is the orange cat, short hair, who has no teeth. All bloody and muddy and shaken up. And when I put the food out, he wouldn't leave, and he's asleep in the kitchen. I cleaned him up, and I'll let him just sit there for a while. Poor guy. He got into a fight, and of course, he can't fight well because he doesn't have teeth, and he's hiding out in the house because he's shaken up, and that's fine. And Rodney says Greta is simply a puppet. That is true. Paul says her grandfather wanted everyone dead. And I got some donations. Mark T made a $10 donation to the channel, and he says, I appreciate your time in making these videos. And I appreciate that you appreciate it. I'm just trying to reach out to people and be honest and get them thinking and give them a straightforward opinion. So I appreciate that a great deal. And of course, you know, any donation is much appreciated, goes a long way towards helping to take care of our little animal friends, because we got our makeshift kind of shelter going where we take care of them. And Rodney also made a $10 donation. He says, here's a couple of bucks for supplies. Absolutely. Much appreciated. Rodney means a lot. Means a lot. Goes a long way, again, towards taking care of them. Nature Nerd says, war is terrible for the environment with all the shells, heavy metals, and shrapnel polluting the area, and gas-guzzling ships, tanks, and armored vehicles. And all people going on about Thunberg's parents need to help her get a life, real job. Oh, no. Why would they help her? Yeah, I mean, she's already past being useful. She's not young anymore, so it doesn't matter. They kind of trying to push her away. That's why she keeps getting arrested and keeps getting in trouble. But they made a lot of money off of her. So if she can keep earning money this way, they'll be all for it. Dragon says, how ironic they would choose to silence and be physically aggressive towards the man. He's right. It's about climate change, not some other political BS. Yeah. And I don't believe in the whole climate change theology myself anyways, but that's not what they came for. That crowd's being misled. He shouldn't have to listen to it. I'm not mad at him. Bulldozer says, lunch is over and he's got to run. Well, I'm glad you could make it today. Urban says he agrees by throwing all the other issues into the bubbling pot of virtue signaling. The various lefty groups will lead each other. Yeah, it self-destructs. Gary says Greta was meant to be a flash in the pan. She doesn't realize her time is gone. That's correct. And Helta says she doesn't care for truth, just going for the opinions that will get her the most attention. Still going through those teenage years. Well, she's got her famous line that they stole her childhood, and again, I contest that. Her childhood wasn't stolen, it was sold. She sold her childhood. She didn't have a childhood because she chose to make money and be famous instead. And Monkey says she's not a poster child anymore. That's right. Uh, All People says forgot Hobo and Daniel, those two, and Granny Dusty Uncle. Yeah, it goes on and on because you got old Dad back there, you got Junior back there, Speck is back there, Squeaky is back there. Paul says her family was rich before. Look up her grandfather. Okay. Fluke Man says, who would employ Greta Thunberg? No, I wouldn't. And Nature Nerd says, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish is a good Disney cat film. I heard actually that wasn't bad at all. Speaking of climate activism, I got one for you. I got one for you here. Here's my pet peeve activism thing, real quick. I'm going to go back to New York, and this is CBS, New York City. Rockefeller Center Christmas tree arrives in New York City. I'm not going to bother reading the article. I'm just going to make a point. Where's the picture? The picture disappeared. Anyway, it goes on. It's talking real quick that the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree arrived in New York City early Saturday. 12-ton tree was driven down from Vestal, New York. Once it was off the truck, crews didn't waste any time getting the 80-foot tall tree in place. That's 8 stories, 80 foot. Scaffolding surrounding it, 50,000 multicolored lights, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why the picture's not there, but whatever. Here's my thing. Just last week, we were reading about how New York City wasted more than $500,000 apiece on electric snowplows that don't work. And they have to go back to diesel, which cost a third of the price. A third of the price. Because they want to go all green. Because climate change, because environment. But every year, you'll cut down an 80-foot tree and drag it to Rockefeller Center and prop it up. You want to prove that you're for the environment? Why don't you plant a damn tree in Rockefeller Center? How about that? You know, the technology exists where you could pull an 80-foot tree out, or close enough, roots and all, and transport the whole damn thing to Rockefeller Center and plant it there permanently and not have to do that every year. But you'll still chop the damn tree down. Tree's probably older than the people that are putting it up. Unbelievable. Gary says it's a good film, but is it Disney? And Nature Nerd says it's DreamWorks. Okay, and Paul says, how are they going to power it? With their own sense of self-worth. They'll feel good about it, and it'll light it up. That's how. But that's my point. And it's not just Rockefeller Center, because they do this all over the place. They do it on the White House lawn. You can't plant a tree there. You got to cut one down every year. And many major cities do this all across the country. They chop a tree down, a big tree, and they plant it there for the winter, and then they remove it and they take it to the dump. Once again, you can't plant a tree in that spot and then every year just decorate it. Is this too much? Am I wrong? Is that me just fantasizing here? Monkey says, I even saw in an article that filling up an electric car is like paying $17.50 a gallon. Forgot which source it was, but I heard. I hadn't heard that. That's interesting if that's true, though. How about martial arts? You want to jump to martial arts here? Real quick. State of the Union. State of the Union is the name of the website. And it says martial arts org changes rules for transmogrified women. And I also heard that the jiu-jitsu, the American National Jiu-Jitsu organization, I forget what they call themselves now, is making rules about this too. As you recall, and we covered this a few weeks back, in Atlanta they had a jiu-jitsu championship, and they had transmogrified men, and all the women walked out, and the men took all the medals by default and smiled to the camera and held up pride flags like they had an accomplishment. They accomplished zero. It was absolutely disgusting that went down. But the martial arts community has taken a cue from this, and they're making changes. It says the North American Grappling Association has changed its rules after female athletes were forced to compete against transmogrified men without prior knowledge. Female competitors backed out of the competitions after feeling fearful and uncomfortable. The simple fact of the matter is that men signing up in a combat sport to fight women is absolutely unacceptable, female fighter Jaden Alexander says. The experience was horrible and scary. I was absolutely in fight or flight mode. We don't deserve to self-exclude from competitions to avoid fighting men, she adds. We deserve for there to be rules and regulations put in place that keep us safe and that protect us from these situations happening in the first place. I can't believe people actually think this is okay, remarked competitor Ansley Wilk. Ansley, they don't think it's okay. They don't. But the leadership in these organizations have been bamboozled into believing that they're towing the line. Most people do not agree with this. It's a handful of activists and a handful of pandering politicians and others. It says the new rules state that transmogrified identifying men can only compete against biological men, and male to female transmogrified athletes who have gone through male puberty are excluded from competing in the female division. And this is the same thing that the National Judo Association has also made a similar announcement. I believe it was yesterday. That this is, so what you're looking at right here with this dude with the pink hair who trounced this woman will not be able to continue to do that in this sport. It's absolutely disgusting that goes on. It really is. And let me catch up a couple more comments here. Helter says it's such a waste to destroy a long-lived tree for just some eye candy for 30 days. Yeah, and that's my point. I don't use a Christmas tree. We don't really even celebrate Christmas, my wife and I. We don't identify us very well with the holiday. But it always kind of bothered me. It seems like a waste. But yeah, I think it would be easier to plant it. Paul says, yet they will cut your power for heating. Yeah. Flukeman says Scottish National Party cut down 16,000 trees and replaced them with wind farms. I'm no expert. They probably generate more power if they had 100 hamsters on wheels. Those wind farms are getting more and more of a bad rap in recent years. They just don't work. Urban says most Christmas trees come from tree farms, but a big one like that, has to be pulled from the forest. Monkey says it was on the Microsoft News pop-up on my computer, so it's probably buried. Oh, crap. Okay. And Gary Smith made a $10 donation to the channel. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. And again, it goes a long way towards taking care of the critters. And you can see over my shoulder there, Dusty is still sitting in the chair, isn't she? Yep, she's asleep in the chair. And Miss Granny Smith is now laying on the box there. And the rest of them are sleeping wherever. I know where Uncle is, actually. I can guess where he is because Uncle, he sleeps on my side of the bed, on my, like, next to my pillow whenever I'm not in bed. He sleeps there. And then when I go to bed, he sleeps on the floor next to the bed on my side. But he won't get in the bed when I'm in the bed. The other cats don't care, but he does that. I don't know what his deal is. But again, thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. It helps a lot. Nature Nerd says, how many countries will boycott the Olympics if they put transmogrified metal competitors? Blah. All of them, I hope. But I'm glad to see them doing that because somebody had to put their foot down. And it's about time women walked away because that's the only way that this is going to work. if they're going to sit there and compete anyways and get the crap kicked out of them, which is what's been happening, it's not going to change. But those competitors said, no, it's not safe. I'm not going to get into a judo match with dude and have him break my arm or something. Not going to happen. I quit. Keep your medal. I don't care. Pulling out was the smartest thing they could have done. And now those associations, like I said, 2 so far, have stepped up and said, okay, we get it. We're going to make new rules. Monkey says, no wonder females pulled out of the fighting the transistors, because the females would get their skulls crushed despite how many estrogen pills their transistors take. And you've seen it in like UFC style fights too. And the women, they look like they were in a train wreck. They got hurt bad. It's not right. Dragon says they should make a league for transmogrified people. They may not be as many people for the league, but at least it would be a temporary solution. It wouldn't be very hard to put together. Well, they don't want to fight with each other. They want to fight with girls. That's what they want. Monkey says it's like South Park, the dude identifying as female and winning all the girls' competitions. Yeah, and they impersonated Randy Savage in that episode. I remember that. It's one of their decent, one of their more decent recent episodes, because I can't even watch that show anymore. It's gotten so raunchy and nasty. This one's really important to me. And this is a story that's flying right under the radar again. It's a story you probably didn't see or didn't pay attention to if you did. And it's really important. And I hope I have enough time to really hash it out here quickly. It's from The Talker. Scientists create first live chimera monkey. And for those of you who don't understand what that is, I might go over here. A chimera is a mixing of different species. Okay. For example, a mule is a chimera, because a mule is 2 different species of animal. It's a horse and a donkey made it together and created a mule. But the mule is technically an abomination of the species, because a mule is not capable of reproduction. So it's a stopgap. The lack of reproduction is a stopgap to prevent it from morphing into a new species. Also, a liger, which is a cross between a tiger and a lion. A liger is impotent. It cannot reproduce. So what do? You get scientists to do it for you. And here it is. And the eyes are green. And the eyes are green as an indicator, because they merged species together. And this is done in China. They have done that. And they've been doing this. They've been doing it with rodents and other species, and now they've done it with a monkey. It says, Frankenscience has taken a new twist with the first live birth of a chimeric monkey. And it says CH, but it's pronounced with a K. Scientists from China reported the long-sought birth of a male primate containing high proportion of cells derived from monkey stem cell lines. Images show the green fluorescent signals in different body parts of the 3-day-old animal. The contribution of stem cells in different tissue types range from 21% to 92%, blah, 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 composed of cells that originated from 2 genetically distinct embryos of the same species. And it says the research not only has implications for understanding native pluripotency in other primates, including humans, but it also has relevant practical implications for genetic engineering and species conversion. Basically, it's sorcery. This is not something that's supposed to be done. And it's not a primate. And I think that's important to point out. They mentioned here primate species. That's a precursor, because a monkey is not a primate. So you go from rodents to sometimes pigs, because pigs have the same organ structure as a human being. It's similar anyways. Then you go to monkeys, because monkeys will jump you off into primates. And what do you think's next after they do it to primates? What comes next? Human beings. Human beings are next. So that's, don't tell me about medical practices and experiments and this will help us with diseases and bullshit. They're doing this because they want to retrofit human beings. And since humans are all a single species, the only thing you can cross a human with is animal traits. And that's some scary garbage. You want to talk end of the world stuff? This is it. This is it. This is it right here. A couple more comments real quick. Dragon says, are those scientists trying to make Planet of the Apes a reality? Because this is how you get Planet of the Apes. Yeah, no kidding. Or the island of Dr. Mordeaux. Rodney says he feels sorry for the monkey. Yeah, because they're going to be running horrible tests on him his entire life. And Helter says, if science fiction's taught me anything, it's this will go absolutely wrong. Yeah. And Monkey says, Full Metal Alchemy taught me anything. Its chimeras are ugly and horrific. Well, they're an abomination. Biblically speaking, it's an abomination. You're not supposed to cross species. Even a mule is not supposed to be done, according to the Bible. But also, again, it's an abomination in construct, because species are species for a reason. That's why a giraffe and a dolphin can't mate. They can't produce anything functional. It can't even mix. Nothing will grow. There's a few rare exceptions, like I said, mules or ligers, and there's a bear crossover as well. Any other example you have, they're the same species. That's why different horses can mate. That's why different people from all over the world can mate, because we're one species, technically, like it or not. Cats, any type of basic feline, can mate with another feline from anywhere in the world. But this is where you go. And the next step will be a primate or a pig. And then the next step after that is human beings. And that's some scary garbage. It really is. So I'll take a moment here real quick, thank a few people again. Thank you, Mark, Rodney, and Gary, for making donations to the channel and helping the channel out. It means a lot. It really does. Again, this is Coffee Talk, or at Coffee Talk Live if you're looking for me on YouTube, or at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as Prepper University on Twitter, or Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. So thank you, everybody who was able to join us this afternoon. Hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will do this again tomorrow.